10,000 years ago, the Sahara Desert didn't exist. Where you see endless sand today, there were rivers, lakes, grasslands, forests. Hippos swam in North African waters. Giraffes grazed on savannas. People lived in green, fertile land. Then the climate shifted. Over 3,000 years, the rain stopped. The rivers dried up. The grasslands turned to sand. The Sahara transformed into the largest hot desert on Earth. 3.6 million square miles of scorching wasteland. Temperatures reaching 136 degrees Fahrenheit. Some areas receiving zero rainfall for decades. But people didn't leave. They adapted. For thousands of years, ancient North Africans survived in conditions that kill modern travelers in hours. They crossed 3,000 miles of desert on foot, built trade networks that connected sub-Saharan Africa to the Mediterranean, left behind rock art that tells their story. This is how they survived the deadliest desert on Earth, and why most of their knowledge is lost. The Sahara wasn't always a desert. Between 10,000 and 5,000 BC, North Africa experienced what scientists call the African humid period. The monsoon belt shifted north. Rain fell regularly. Rivers like the Nile had multiple tributaries that no longer exist. Lake Chad was larger than the Caspian Sea. Archaeological evidence shows thriving civilizations. Rock art across the Sahara depicts hippos, crocodiles, elephants, and giraffes, animals that need water and vegetation. The Tassili Niger Plateau in Algeria has over 15,000 rock paintings showing people herding cattle, hunting, and living in permanent settlements. Then around 5000 BC, the monsoons shifted south again. The rain stopped, slowly at first, then catastrophically. Lakes evaporated. Rivers disappeared. Vegetation died. Animals migrated or went extinct. People faced a choice: leave or adapt. Many left. They moved to the Nile Valley, creating the foundation for ancient Egypt. Others moved south to the Sahel region. But some stayed, and they figured out how to survive. The first key was water. In a desert where rain might not fall for years, you need alternative sources. Oases became everything. These are places where underground aquifers come close enough to the surface that water can be accessed. The Sahara has hundreds of oases, but they're scattered. Some are 200 miles apart. Ancient people memorized every single one. But finding an oasis wasn't enough. You needed to know when it had water. Some oases are seasonal, only accessible during certain times of year. Others are permanent but small, supporting maybe 50 people maximum. Travel routes had to account for this. Ancient Saharans developed well-digging technology. They could identify underground water sources by reading the landscape. Certain types of vegetation, even if sparse, indicated water below. Animal trails converged at water sources. They dug wells up to 100 feet deep using basic tools. And they stored water. Clay pots sealed with resin could hold water for weeks. Animal skins treated with fat became water carriers. They learned to travel at night when temperatures dropped and water loss through sweating decreased. But water alone wasn't enough. You need food. And the Sahara has almost nothing edible growing naturally. The ancient Saharan diet depended on animals, not hunting, though that happened. Herding, cattle, goats, sheep, and camels. The rock art shows this clearly. Thousands of images of herders with livestock. This wasn't just keeping a few animals. This was sophisticated pastoralism. They understood migration patterns. During the brief rainy seasons, sparse grass would grow. They moved their herds to these areas, letting animals graze. When the grass died, they moved again, following a circuit that could span hundreds of miles annually. The camel changed everything. Camels were domesticated around 3000 BC in Arabia. They reached North Africa by 1000 BC. And they're perfectly designed for desert survival. Camels can go 10 days without water. They can carry 400 pounds across sand. They eat thorny plants other animals won't touch. Their wide feet don't sink in sand. They can survive on minimal food for weeks. With camels, the Sahara became crossable. Trade routes opened that were previously impossible. The most famous was the Trans-Saharan trade route, from sub-Saharan Africa to North Africa and the Mediterranean. Over 3,000 miles. Through the most hostile environment on Earth. They traded gold, salt, ivory, and slaves. Salt was as valuable as gold. The Sahara has massive salt deposits. Places like Tadeni in Mali, where salt has been mined for over 1,000 years. Caravans would carry salt south to West Africa, where it was scarce, and bring gold north to the Mediterranean markets. These weren't small trips. Caravans consisted of hundreds of camels, sometimes thousands. They traveled in groups for protection against bandits and the desert itself. A single wrong turn meant death. Navigation was critical. No GPS, no compasses until much later. Ancient Saharans navigated by stars. They memorized constellations and their positions throughout the year. They read the sun's position. They observed wind patterns, how sand dunes formed, which direction they pointed. They created mental maps passed down through generations. Oral knowledge of every water source, every dangerous area, every landmark. This knowledge was survival. Lose it and you die.